Hello, my friends. It's Hank here with Amy Glow Radio at noon, coming from sunny Florida, state which I thoroughly love. Now, I figure what I would do today is just address something kind of simple. Is Hank real? Well, yes, Hank McGurk is a real person. Now, to give a little background, to give a little history, and first let me preface this by saying I know that probably everyone's favorite topic is to talk about themselves. This is something that we learn when we study sales and psychology and things like that. You get somebody to talk. If you want somebody to talk, you ask them about themselves. So I've never really found much value in talking about myself. To great length or at all, really. When we're in sales, we do something called an elevator speech where you get it all out in 5 minutes and you try and make it interesting, or a presentation. But I find so often that presentations of self are exercises in deceit, because you're always trying to portray a particular image. You're trying to cultivate an image that you're trying to show the world. So there may be some elements of self-deceit. There also may be some elements of where you don't disclose everything. You keep things to yourself. You have a public life and a private life. And basically you're trying to paint an image for somebody. Now, long ago, it was a lot harder to track people on the internet. I mean, you could still do it, but back in the early days, you always had an alias or multiple aliases. You didn't publicly give out your address or telephone number or whatever. And back in the day when I was coming up, the internet was a very vicious place. I mean, there was no civility. It was all about really trying to hurt other people or to see if you could get under their skin. It's a game. It was a game. So strange today we live in this era of censorship, because back in the day everything was unrestricted. Foul language, I mean, just the worst sorts of stuff, and personal attacks. And unfortunately, yeah, I mean, there was some suicides. It's bullying. I mean, but bullying goes on everywhere. It goes on in primary school, elementary, middle, high school, politics. It doesn't matter. At work, there's always some form of bullying going on. So I see you learn to develop a thick skin, and you learn to ignore things that you really don't have time for. But you never really would advertise your, real name, where you lived, what your telephone number was, because there are crazies out there back in the day, still are today, that like to cause problems. So people that have been on the internet for a long time have gone through a progression of different names and aliases. And while Hank McGurk might not be my Christian name, my birth name, my given name, it was a name that was given to me by a very good friend of mine that taught me a lot of things and that looked after me when I should have not been doing the things that I was doing. He was a very intelligent person. I guess, let's get real. I'm going to be real here. And for a long time, when I was young, I had severe distrust, I think, to put it mildly, of most people, from just things that I had witnessed and observed. And I'd come to a point in my life where I was willing to take risks that really nobody should be taking, because it was kind of like I didn't care if I lived or if I died. I was going to full throttle, both barrels, take on extreme risks. Now, there was only one thing that I really found that was able to help me cope with crowds and people and, you know, big universities, and to actually be able to, you know, integrate into parties and all these other things, was alcohol. So to say that I was an alcoholic, I guess, would be to put it mildly. I drank to excess, you know, like one of those types of people that would drink a quart of vodka or something a day. I made sure I moved away from my family. I made sure that as I engaged in these things, that I didn't damage my loved ones. But when you go out into the world like that, you do develop new friends that are like family, because they too have run from something that they themselves will never escape, and that's themselves. They might have moved away from their families, or maybe their families had disowned them, as they pursue these paths of exploration that might not necessarily be obviously or overtly positive. These life experiences that are gained by people that just have not elected to go with the flow and engage in an extreme amount of risk. And in that world, you do develop friends that are like your family, because you have to have, in those types of environments, you have to have people you trust with your life, because you'll find yourself in some pretty risky situations, because you're all totally engaged, whether it be through addiction or through self-loathing or through some sort of internal disharmony that kind of drives you to do the things that are not constructive or productive for your life. They're not healthy. But you have to have really serious people that will be like your family when you're on that path and you walk with those people. Now, two of my friends during this period, they're dead. One's in prison for now, and the other is lost on the coast. But still, my brother, because you become like family. You have to be. I mean, you literally trust these people with your life, and you would give anything for them. And the entire code is that of honor and integrity. You don't steal from each other. You don't attack each other. You always back each other up. This is like a tribalism that you're using, that replaces your family, where you're doing things that your family would not approve of, nor would you want your family to be exposed to. So, you know, as I had come to the realization, or I thought that I'd come to the realization that I would be dead, you know, in my 20s, or I would make it to 30, and, you know, I was just going to go full bore all the way. And to hell with the consequences. Because if you come to the point where you're going to kill yourself anyway, I mean, you're pretty much, let's say, immune to a whole lot of things other people would consider risky. And so I found myself, you know, from a person that kind of was like, you know, more on the academic side, approaching a culture or a street culture, which I had no experience with whatsoever. And I had a couple of people that were experienced in street culture that looked after me. And one of them, who's passed away now, was a cocaine addict. And fortunately, I never had a taste for those types of hard drugs. Just, I'd seen it ruin way too many lives, and people got way too weird with it. And having the calculating analytical mind that I do, doing and I know this sounds silly, cost-benefit analysis for what it would cost for cocaine on the street compared to like how much alcohol I could get. There was no equivalency. Like, I could get a lot more alcohol, so there's no way I was going to waste money on these other drugs if I could get more alcohol, because then I could stay drunk longer. So even then, doing the cost-benefit analysis. But my friend, in a street culture, you have another name, an alias, just like you would on the internet. Because identities are worth something, and they're worth something to people on the street. They'll steal your ID and everything, just, you know, which will fetch a fairly good price on the market, from what I've heard. You know, one of my friends, Catfish, who's now deceased, I used to leave my wallet laying out because I was a trusting person, especially among the group. And he would literally pick it up and smack me in the face with it and tell me, don't leave it out at all. Because I said, well, there's no money in it. And he said, well, I could take it and turn it over to somebody else that would buy it, and they would use your ID and all kinds of other stuff. So anytime I made a mistake like that, he'd slap me in the face with the wallet and say, you know, just keep whatever you have not laying out. Okay, don't be stupid. Basically. So, but my other friend, the cocaine addict, of course, can't run from himself, and he had many aliases in many different ways that he interacted with the world. And being the person that I was, I had my door open to people, and it kind of created a family type of atmosphere. So people weren't homeless, you know, like, and we ate, and the bounty that you share, even when you have very little, if you cooperate with just even a handful of other people, you have so much more. You can do so much more with just a tiny bit and make it go so far that everybody is happy. But it requires absolute honesty, trust, the right kind of people, and a way to resolve disputes. And the name Hank McGurk was given to me by that friend that looked after me. He said, "Whoa there, Hank, slow down." So it's but one facet of my personality, and one thing that I'd like to treasure his memory with, and my memories of that experience or those experiences. So you know, a lot of people say, oh, that's not your real name. You know, why don't you put your real name out there if you're going to be, you know, totally honest and totally open and everything. Well, man, we might have more than one name and it's still true to the self. Like, for example, my animals. If you get one, first you'll get a name. Like we had a cockatiel come over and stay with us now. It's staying with us because its owner is dying. So we'll look after the bird. And the bird's name was Baby. But Baby is as old as I am. So Baby, as I began to learn the personality of the bird, Baby became Grandpa Baby. Because he's can't fly, he's crotchety, he's blind in one eye, he's a crotchety, he's just like Grandpa Baby. So it gives him another word. Once I finish putting him through med school, he'll be Dr. Grandpa Baby. So, or like, you know, the dog might have a name to start with, like Bear would be one of my dogs. And then he might be Mr. Bear. Like I'll start calling him Mr. Bear. And then they gain more and more names. And the more names that something has, and I think this might even be an Indian tradition, but the more names that you gather, it's kind of like title. It kind of elevates as you gain more names that are true to yourself. Like, I guess, you know, like when I was in the finance industry, I mean, it's really ridiculous. And one of my friends who's an author actually would tease me about it. And he was right. He said, yeah, you're one of those guys that runs around with all those letters behind your name. Like it means something. And it's true. I mean, finance guys just pack it on. Oh, like, oh my goodness, you know. I could go on and on about all that, but yeah, the more letters that you have behind your name, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's like increase in title. And it's just for the dumbest stuff, like, you know, like field actuary or financial planner. So, okay, so I'm, you know, like a CFP, and I'm a let's see, what, gosh, there's just so many acronyms. I can't even think of them all right now. I can't even remember what's on my own resume. For goodness sake, that's terrible, but it's just a lot of letters. Comes from certification and stuff. So, oh yeah, like whatever. I don't think that really, it might reveal a certain level of competency in a certain thing, but it tells you nothing about the person, the quality of someone's character, or whether or not they're going to be honest, or whether or not they're actually good at any of these things, or if they actually studied appropriately for these things and actually learned anything. You know, many people with no title whatsoever, and America was a place where our founding fathers were very much against any addition of title to one's name, because it's too close to monarchy and a British sort of way of doing things. We were very much opposed to title in this country, which is, I guess, another point that I have about the fascist nature of the way that the country's going, because everybody's like, oh, well, you know, he's a, you know, DHS agent, or he's an FBI agent, or he's a doctor of so-and-so, or judge blah, 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 or DMV, or DVM, I mean, or DDS. It's like title has become more important than the quality or the character of the person and the breadth of their knowledge. And very knowledgeable people might not necessarily carry a title. And that's why I don't like the idea of everything needing some certification or some licensing, because I believe that I am probably more than qualified to tutor on many different subjects. Now, I couldn't just go and teach. I would actually be on the black market of teachers, because I would need some bizarre level of certification, or some 4 years or 2 years of nonsense where you can learn how to draw pictures and you know, whatever. Like, there is an important aspect to training how to educate, but there's also this kind of needless sort of certification where people that would be educators decide not to be. Not because they don't know a subject through and through, but because they don't want to go through the red tape of getting these ridiculous certifications. Which is corporatism, fascism again. So it also, the title, well, let me get back, I guess, I think, to is Hank real? Well, yes, I'm real. I'm real. Hank McGurk is, yes, one facet of my personality. It's the personality that I try and cultivate and share with this audience, with you. And I'm showing as much of myself as honestly as I can, because we're all mired in self-deceit. They're all things that we try and hide or obfuscate, or maybe there's only one particular aspect of ourselves that we want to share. But just because it's not my Christian name, when I sign Hank, it's just as much me as if I sign my Christian legal name, or the straw man fiction, if you want to look at it from a corporatist aspect. And since we're not engaged in a corporatist atmosphere, you and I here, that's just the way it is. So as I'm unaccustomed to really going into great detail about myself, nor do I ever really find it that valuable, I thought it was important at least to let you know why Hank McGurk is real. When I sign, it's real. It's coming from me. It's not and just a disposable alias. It is a part of my character. So I thought that was fair. Oh, and let me point out just one other thing here. Let's see if I can do this backwards. Well, my finger will be fine here. See this area here? Okay. Let's see. That's a whiteboard. And this is an area with fantastic illumination. Now the whiteboard has a very specific dimension. Look how well that area is lit. How phenomenal would it be if one of H. Thomas Ackerman's work hung right there all the time? Certainly would be a grand centerpiece. It would be the treasure of my collections. I love to collect books and art. I don't have anything of value. Well, what people think is valuable, but to me, that's the thing. Some objects are sentimental, some are, I mean, it's not about the money, my friends. It's not about the money, okay? It's about the essence of the thing. And I would put it right there, to replace the childish things that I have there. Those are sentimental. I certainly would keep them. But that, and then it would show It would be another place. But Thomas Ackerman works very hard. And he spends a lot of time on his work. And I am a poor person. I elect to open source what I can, give away what I can, share what I can, but that makes me basically poor in currency. I find that when I get attached to desire or want, enticements of money, the paths that I've gone down seeking those things have led me to choices where I would have to make the moral choice or the immoral choice. And when I made the moral choice, I stopped doing what I was doing. I was being asked by my superiors to do what I considered to be immoral in order to make numbers or make money, and I refused to do that. And it costs to be moral. It cost more, and I had to give more, and people did not care that it cost me personally, because I was trying to help the people that needed it the most, who did not have any money. Basically, bankrupts you. So, if you found it within your heart, and you also, as I do, wanted to see one of Thomas Ackerman's pieces here, you could always gift that to me by making sure that he was compensated for his time, his thought, his work. So we're all having a problem with M2 or money velocity. There's just not enough of it out here. There's no money going around. It's like before a lot of people in my generation even get paid, they already owe on their last paycheck. They're not living paycheck to paycheck. They're just trying to pay their overages from before. And I've already demonstrated in Cheese Combo that it's not really tied to anything other than a managed market. It's not a failure of capitalism. It's whatever bizarro world that we've entered into right now of this debt-based nonsense. So there's just no cash out here. So even if I wanted to go and clean kennels or, pick up some other kind of work, I just don't know that that's going to be the right way to go about things. And I don't want to abandon the projects that I believe are very, very important and crucial at this period, even though I'm willing to do so. There are works in progress that I'm dedicated to and would rather not step away from, which we'll go into, as time progresses. I might give away some of the old secrets that are useless now. Well, not necessarily useless, but something that I wouldn't want to inflict upon my audience in some of the research that I've done. Weapons-related research. Psychotronic research. So, maybe. Anyway, Hank is real. It's been Hank. Catch you on the flip side.